1998 is interesting because the FDNY around this time launches the Special Operations Command, which is still in existence today and encompasses many different aspects of heavy rescue work. And I've always been fascinated by it, and you were part of it, and so I want to get your take on it. Squad 270 in Queens, I believe, is where you first went in 98 after 16 years with Ladder 108. So by this point, 17 years on the job, pretty good pace, as you mentioned earlier, with Ladder 108 in Brooklyn. What prompted this change to go into SOC?
Actually, I was working in Williamsburg for a long time. The commute wasn't the best in the world, and the nature of the neighborhood, there were a lot of housing projects, and the housing projects they were a handful. They were a problem. The city at the time wasn't really taking care of them. They were always elevator problems. There was a lot of drug problems. There were a lot of fires in the building, water leaks, compactor fires. You have so many people living in one place and the building as an infrastructure is used heavily. So there's a lot of garbage fires. So you just get tired of 108. We had a lot of housing projects. We used to call ourselves one Otis 8 because we went to so many stuck elevators and elevator emergencies like Otis Elevator. Just was like, I wanted to do something different. I wanted to see different things. I wanted to learn different things. So once the squad started, and the squad was originally designed to take engines that weren't really doing a lot of work. They were underutilized, as the Commissioner Von Essen said at the time, and give them extra tasks. And that part of those tasks was to meet the needs of what they thought what could happen in the world of terrorism, and that came to be true with the World Trade Center collapse, and hazardous material responses, just an extra fire duty that they foresaw happening, to have additional resources, not just the 5 rescue companies, but to have extra companies, the squad companies that were trained in tactical rescue, like the rescue companies are, and that were also trained in hazardous material operations, with everybody trained to being a hazardous material technician, so that you could respond to a leaking diesel tank on an overturned tractor trailer, or you could conversely respond to a nerve gas incident and have to wear a level A total encapsulating suit. So your training had to be broad enough to cover any possible eventuality. And that was what the squads were for, to augment the hazmat response, to augment the rescue company capabilities. And Chief Ray Downey, he saw the need for a bigger, broader special operations command. And this was his idea, his baby, and he brought it to fruition. Where now we started with 7 squads, there's now 8 squad, in addition to the 5 rescues. So every borough has redundant rescue and hazardous material capabilities in the event that there is a major incident. So each borough is capable of standing alone to meet any possible emergency.
The Proby was crucial. It was funny, like the probationary firefighter was central to the tour, the day tour, night tour, but he was central to it, and then when you finally get out of your probationary period, you're not central to it anymore, because nobody's saying, "Where's the Proby?" Why didn't the Proby do the tools, or why didn't the Proby do this, or your days are pretty much your own. But when you're a Proby, they're not your own. They belong to the guys in the firehouse.
Absolutely. And I mean, listen, it's good to have that training. It's good to, and I had this conversation with Ray Seeley, is that, when they're testing you as a Proby, they're testing you not because they don't like you, but they're testing you because they want to make sure that, okay, listen, can this guy or gal keep his or her cool when they're on the fire floor? Because if they lose it now with me busting their chops, with, you know, miscellaneous jokes that are told in a firehouse setting, how are they going to be when fire's flying over their head? And especially in that era, as we're going to talk about right now, fire was flying over your head quite a bit. So 1966 is when you arrived at Engine Company 82, which at one point, I think, and this isn't hyperbole to say, was the busiest company in the world, not just in New York City, but in the world, with the amount of runs that you had to go on. And right around this time, 1964 is cited as being the beginning, largely, of the FDNY.
Yeah, we were doing 9,600 runs a year.
My gosh.
So they haven't done that many in a few years. The busiest companies now are up around 5,500 or 6,000. But we were 3,000 runs over that. And so you didn't get much time to yourself. You were always out of the job. But that's part of it, you know. And you think of yourself, quite frankly, as a member of a busy company. And it's the idea of this busy company that stays with you. It's a little elitist, quite frankly. And I don't think it's that helpful, but you can't help thinking of it that way. That's, you know, it goes back to what I'd say. I'm FDNY trained and I can do anything. Well, it's also true being in a company that's doing 9,000 runs a year.
The roof man can make or break what's going on down below. You know when I was in 132, I caught a lot of jobs as the roof man. And I'll tell you what, when you're down in that smoky hallway and everything's banked down, you know, you want to kiss that roof man when he gets up there and he gets that bulkhead door forced, and now you're taking the cover off the chimney, and now that smoke and heat has a place to go, and it makes your life more tenable in that hallway until you can get in there and fight the fire. That makes it, makes a big difference. So, the roof man's got to get up there. He's by himself. He's got to force the door by himself. He's got to make sure that door stays open. How do you do that? Okay, well, a lot of times you want to break the top hinge off the door so now the door can't close. Or a lot of times there's old buckets of tar or whatever on the roof, but that door has to stay open. If there's a skylight on top of the bulkhead and you can get up there, you get up there and you break the skylight too to give more vent. Now you have to make a survey around the whole perimeter of the roof, because guys in the front, the chief and everybody else, they can't see what's going on in the rear or in the courtyards. There were times when you make a survey. I remember in Rescue 1, and 30 truck was relocated to 35 truck, daytime fire. And their roofman had gotten up there as we were rolling in and was doing his survey, looked over the side, and it was a 7-story. It was 6 stories and then a story below in the rear. There was an old guy straddling the windowsill with smoke pouring out over his head, not screaming or anything, and the roofman looked down and this guy looked up and just gave him a wave. You would think people would be screaming like, help, help, So if the roofman didn't do his complete survey, he wouldn't have known that guy was there. And then what happened is we ended up effecting a roof rope rescue and got the guy down to the ground and had a happy ending. But, you want to do that survey. You want to see, not only just for people, you want to see, maybe, you see you got smoke. Well, maybe there's fire blowing out 2 windows on the 4th floor. Well, now that information is critical. You get on the radio and let them know, because they can't see in the front. All they know is they got smoke. Well, where is the fire department? Oh yeah, I got fire on the 4th floor. It's on the A side or the B side, So that's all critical information. Maybe you have to cut the roof. You're going up there with the roof man's like a pack mule. Top floor, he's got the roof rope, the saw, his tools, and his gear. He's about 125, 130 pounds over body weight. And now maybe you climb in an aerial, you're climbing 6 stories, 7 stories, the stairs to get up there. It's a young man's job, and you got to be in shape. There's no 300 pounders doing that, because by the time you get up there, you're going to be huffing and puffing and having a heart attack. So, it's the roof. A good roof man is worth his weight in gold.
This is Manhattan that you're working in. The training, it's not just fires. Obviously, there's the water aspect too, and you did that many a time, which we'll talk about one specific case or one specific rescue in a moment, I should say. But there's so many high rises. You have this is the 80s, you have the Empire State Building, the Chrysler Building, the World Trade Center. So that's just to name a few. What's the training like specifically relating not just to the fires in a high rise building, as you talked about earlier, but rappelling down the side if a window washer gets stuck up there or, any other event?
Well, to me, that was one of the most attractive parts of Rescue One. The other rescue companies, each of them are amazing for what they do in the boroughs that they're in. But to me, Manhattan always seemed to be, what I used to tell my friends is, you guys are hitting fastballs. We have to learn to hit curveballs because they throw the oddest things at you. Right. I remember sitting one night and speaking with guys from other rescue companies and asked them, how many sidewalk fires have you had? And they just give me this look, what are you talking about? But I had 2 or 3 what we called sidewalk fires, where somebody dropped a cigarette butt, it rolled into the crack next to a high-rise building, and underneath the sidewalk is a little hollow space where garbage and stuff accumulates, and you get a fire burning underneath the sidewalk adjacent to a high-rise building. So it's like, where's Waldo? You have to find out where this fire is. How are you going to get to it? We had one with Captain Hanton one day on 57th Street. And there's smoke in this basement. You can smell it good. And the chief's worried that he doesn't want to lose his whole high-rise building. And Captain Hatton's going around with the thermal camera and all this. And he goes, Chief, I found the fire. We're going to have to open the sidewalk. And the chief is like, oh, boy, 57th Street, those double wide sidewalks, multi-million-dollar rents everybody's paying. We get out the pavement breaker. We start going, and I'm watching the chief. He's thinking, here goes my career if there's not fire under this sidewalk. And we put the first hole through and a jet of flame comes through and the chief goes, yes. He was so happy. But that's the weird kind of stuff, and that was the fun things about working in those, those obscure, unusual kind of jobs. That was the fun of it to me, the challenge.
You need to be ready to go to work. Put your gear on, get ready to go to work. Because you can go out for a little rubbish fire and then you get redirected. The last thing you want to do is pull up in front of a fire building and you don't have your gear on. It doesn't look professional.
Yeah, it's not good. I had to ask you, when you came on, I think guys still rode the back step. You ever ride the back step just to go back?
Oh, yeah.
Tell me about that.
We would ride the back step. And 2 guys in the back step and 2 guys, nozzle man, backup man, back step, doorman and control man would be inside the cab. And you'd be on the back step, you go out for BI, building inspection, or you're picking up the meal, and all of a sudden the lights, because you didn't have radios back then. I mean, we didn't have them. Naturally the boss had one, but all of a sudden the lights would go on and you hit a sign, oh, we got to run. Well, now we got to put our gear on as we're going down the street. We're hanging on with one hand on the pole. Now we're trying to put our gear on. It was fun. It was exciting, but too many guys got hurt, so they did it. But we did. Yeah, we rode the back step. Yeah, it was fun. Yeah, well, you wanted to be on the back step.
It's exciting. I mean, that's why I envy it, because it's a really hot day. as the car's going down the street or the truck's going down the street, the breeze hits you. That had to be amazing. Well,
yeah, you're hanging out on the side. You're on a rail and you're going down and you're looking out to see. You're looking to see what's going on. You're looking for smoke. You're looking for fire. And where are we going? Because there's no radio, but we don't know where we're going. We're just hanging on for dear life.
Yeah. I mean, if there was a way.
You're not going 5-10 miles an hour. You're going to a run. You got to run. So you're moving down the street. Mm-hmm. And some of the chauffeurs were really good chauffeurs. I mean, they knew how to handle that brake. And so it was an exciting time. Yeah, riding the back step. I missed that when they went inside. Then but it was for everyone's safety. Yeah,
if there's a way that they could make that safer for everybody, I'd love to see them bring it back. If they could strap them in and make sure everything's okay on that front, because safety first, we do understand.
Yeah, even the tower ladders now nobody's outside in the tower ladder either. Everybody's inside. Yeah, no one's. It's for us and it's for safety. That's bottom line.
Our office was 7 World Trade, and that's where I was on the morning of September 11th. I think my story is out there a lot, but basically, you know, I was probably one of the first responders into the North Tower that morning, and the things I'd like to talk about are the heroes I saw that day, the heroes who I was the last to see them. These days, a lot of their children are 20, 21, 22, 23 years old. They're old enough where they can begin to ask questions about their father or their mother. And so I now have been gaining more and more of these young people and being able to tell them about their fathers or mothers' last moments and the heroism they displayed and the courage and bravery they displayed in the last moments of their life. And I believe that's one of the main reasons God didn't take me that day, was so that I could talk about these heroes. And I know they knew that they were likely fulfilling their oath that day completely, because they said it to me. I went into the North Tower at the plaza level, which was one level higher than VC Street level.
Austin J. Toba Plaza.
That's exactly right. So I was on the plaza. That's where I entered into the North Tower. There was an escalator there where hundreds of office workers were kind of funneling onto this escalator to go down and go underground to get away, because that's the way the Port Authority police were directing them. Hundreds of people trying to get on this escalator. And Mike, I'll tell you, what you would expect to be happening did not happen. You would expect people to be pushing and screaming and trampling each other, which they were not. They were doing the opposite. For every person who was obese or pregnant or injured or disabled, there were 4 or 5 office workers helping that person. And I said to myself in that moment, no matter what happens to us today, we're going to be okay, because that's the true human spirit. People are good. When someone trips next to us, what does everybody do? They reach their hand out to try and help that person out and check to see if they're okay. And that's exactly what was happening on this escalator on the morning of September 11th, right in front of my eyes. I got on the escalator. I was going down, and as I go down the escalator, the lobby is revealing itself to me. And I chuckled in my head, because I realized in that moment why the cops called us bumblebees. Because when hundreds of us get together with the stripes, the reflective stripes, it looks like a hive. And as that lobby was being revealed to me, I looked out and I said, oh, I get it. It's a hive. We're a hive. There were hundreds of firefighters awaiting their orders to go up. I got to the bottom of the escalator, and right in front of me was a bumblebee. And I looked up at his face, and it was firefighter Chris Blackwell from Rescue 3, who I had worked with, not just in Rescue 3, but on the same shift. So we did everything together. We slept, ate, went to fires, went to emergencies together. Chris was like a blood brother to me. And I love this man with all my heart. Chris was another Connecticut guy. And when he would go home after a long 24 at Rescue 3 in the Bronx, he was a paramedic in his local community. And so all Chris did with his whole life was help other people. If we had a victim, especially a child, from a fire or a car accident or a building collapse, and Chris was working, we always tried to put that patient in Chris's hands, because we knew in his hands gave that person the best chance at life, because Chris was that good. So I get to the bottom of the escalator, and right in front of me is Chris Blackwell. And we always greeted each other the same way. We came face to face. We came to attention. He always had the unlit stub of a cigar in the corner of his mouth to complete his caricature. In a big sweeping motion, he would reach up, grab the cigar out of his mouth, put it down to the side, and we would both lean in and kiss each other on the lips. And then we went back to attention, and he put the cigar back in his mouth. And we did that because we did truly love each other. But we also did it because we thought it was very funny watching the reaction of the other firemen when we did it. And so Chris and I did that on the morning of September 11th. And then he said to me, "Timmy, this is really bad." And I said, "I know, Chris, be careful. I love you." And he said, "I love you too." And after he said those words to me, Mike, "Timmy, this is really bad," he turned around and he went in the stairwell and he went up. He knew it. He said the words to me. He knew he was fulfilling the oath he took when he became a New York City firefighter. He knew he was likely not coming back down that stairwell, but he did it anyhow. I heard someone yell my name across the bumblebees. "Timmy!" It's actually recorded on the Naudet brothers film inside the lobby of the North Tower. You can hear Captain Terry Hatton yelling my name. And I ran over to my best friend, the legend, Captain Terrence S. Hatton, who was 6'4", and with his helmet and boots on, was like 6'7", 6'8". He was the captain of Rescue 1, the Manhattan Elite Rescue Company. And he was put there by the leadership of the fire department on purpose. Ray Downey, Bill Feehan, Commissioner Von Essen put Terry there for a reason, because Terry was a thoroughly experienced Rescue 2 fireman. That's where he learned to be a fireman, under Captain Ray Downey. But Terry was also one of those guys who was really smart. And so he was the perfect person to be the captain of Rescue 1. They were grooming him to one day head up special operations and one day become the chief of the entire New York City Fire Department. That's how much the leadership respected Terry. So I ran to my best friend. I'm 6 feet, he's 6'4". So he kind of overwhelms me when we hug. And I wrapped my arms around him. And he squeezed me tight to his chest. His Hashagen, and he had his light, and he squeezed me tight to his chest. And he kissed me here on the cheek. And he said in my ear, "I love you, brother. I may never see you again." And I blew that comment off. I was just like, yeah, I just kind of brushed it away. But Terry knew what he was talking about. Terry was always 6 steps ahead of everybody else. And Mike, after he said that to me, "I love you, brother. I may never see you again," he turned around, and this is on the Naudet film, and he went in the stairwell with his men, the men of Rescue 1, and they went up. And they made it to the 83rd floor of the North Tower. where they got trapped in an early on localized collapse. And I didn't hear this myself, but I was told by other firefighters who survived, who did hear it, that Terry was screaming the worst thing a New York City fireman could ever say or hear. Mayday, 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 rescue one is trapped. Mayday, 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 rescue one is trapped. Because Terry and his men were trapped up on the 83rd floor in a localized collapse. I know that fireman David Weiss from Rescue One made it down to the lobby of the North Tower. And he was missing his helmet and his head was full of blood. And he was begging other firefighters to go back up with him to help get his guys out from Rescue One. But the evacuation order had already been given, complete evacuation, all FDNY out of the tower by orders of the chief of department. So some firefighters obeyed the command and some disobeyed the command and went back up with David. And they all perished. Along with Terry Hatton, my best friend, and his men from Rescue One. But I didn't hear it on the radio. I had 3 radios. The one in front of me was from emergency management. So I didn't hear Terry yelling. And if I had, I would have been going up those stairs like Patty Brown and the guys from 3 Truck. And I would not have gotten out. So another plane hits the South Tower. We huddle up, the leadership of the city huddles up in the lobby of the North Tower, and it's decided that myself and Assistant Chief Donald Burns would go to the South Tower. And we went to the South Tower. Chief Burns went to the command post. I went to where people were trapped in an elevator in the South Tower. And as you said earlier, I think you said, I don't know if it was Paul or Hank, use the words a no impact event.
Hank.
Yeah. So same thing here with the elevator with me. The people trapped in this elevator needed a real fireman, not a mayor's office guy, because they needed someone with all the gear and with the tools and all that stuff. And it was a pretty horrific sight. People were getting burned and they were trapped. And out of nowhere appears another bumblebee, and I look up at his face, and it's firefighter Michael Lynch from Ladder 4, who I had worked with. And he put his hand, he saw the look in my face, and he saw what was occurring in front of him, which no human should ever see. And he put his hand on my shoulder, and he squeezed my shoulder, and he said to me, "Timmy, I got it." Because he was a fireman and he had all his gear on, he had tools, and he brought a whole fire truck full of tools with him. And he was already formulating his plan on how he was going to rescue these people. I had to leave that scene because over my radio, confirmed by the FBI, 3rd plane incoming, confirmed by the FBI, impact imminent, take cover, impact imminent, get in the stairwells, take cover. And I said to firefighter Michael Lynch, I have to go. You got this. And so I went to the command post. I tried to call the White House. I couldn't get through. Then I tried to call the Pentagon, and the operator told me the Pentagon was under attack, which is the first we knew of it. But I did talk to New York State Emergency Management, and they assured me that the fighter jets were coming as fast as they could to protect us overhead, because we couldn't do our job and save people if planes kept crashing into us. And so we needed to get fighter jets overhead to protect us. With that confirmed, Chief Burns grabbed me and said, get all these injured people out of the lobby of the South Tower, because they were impeding our evacuation effort. And so I ran out onto Liberty Street. The first thing I saw in the middle of Liberty Street was a fireman who was just killed by a woman who jumped. Another thing no one should ever have to see. Mike Lynch was at his truck, ladder 4, yelling at me to go help him with the motor for the hearse tool because it's pretty heavy. And so I started running toward him, but another fireman got there first, and they waved me off. And that's the last time I saw Mike alive. We know that we can prove he saved 2 women out of that elevator. We think he saved 3 with the hearse tool, because the 2 of them identified him positively. The third one wasn't as sure, but thought so before the whole thing came down and killed everyone. And when I told them where Mike was and where they would find his body, I said, you'll find his body with a hearse tool and with a bunch of people that were trapped in an elevator, because I know I was with him less than 10 minutes before the building came down, probably 5 minutes. So I'm out on Liberty Street trying to find the paramedics. I find them under the pedestrian walkway, the south pedestrian walkway that went across West Street. And myself and Captain Charlie Wells from EMS and 2 other paramedics went running with the stretcher to go back into the South Tower. And we were about 20 feet from the door on the sidewalk with the stretcher when the building collapsed. And it was so loud and so obvious, Mike, that there were no words needed. The first piece of steel snapped, and it was so loud that it echoed through the canyons of Lower Manhattan. And we're trained as firefighters, and we've learned through experience in building collapses that you cannot outrun a collapse. It will always catch up to you. And so I yelled at the paramedics, follow me, and we went right into the Marriott Hotel, which was right there where we were, figuring that I think 47-story building or something would maybe protect us from the collapse of the South Tower. The South Tower collapsed on the Marriott, and now the Marriott was collapsing around us. It was as clear as the room that you're in right now. And with a snap of your fingers, it was pitch black. I was in the lobby of the Marriott Hotel, which was a restaurant called the Tall Ships Restaurant. I hit the ground and started crawling to try and find a vertical column, because I know a vertical column is the strongest part of a building, and we frequently find people alive near a vertical column. Somehow, I believe it was through God's guidance that I found a very large vertical column that I was able to wrap my arms around and hold on to. I compare the noise to being on the tarmac of JFK, surrounded by 747s that are full blast. You couldn't breathe because the dust was so thick that it was caking in your mouth and your eyes and your ears and your nose. And I was trying to hold on. I was trying to stick my face down in my shirt to try and breathe. You couldn't see, you couldn't hear, you couldn't breathe. And the wind had lifted me up. As the hotel was collapsing, all that air was being pushed out, and it was all being pushed out where I was. And so my legs went up in the air. I was holding on to this column with every ounce of my strength. The only way I was able to hold on to this is because God gave me the strength to hold on to it. Because this hurricane was trying to blow me out in the street. But I knew if I left this column, the protection of this big steel vertical column, that I was for sure dead. And the only chance I had was to hold on to this column. And I mean, the thoughts you have at the end of your life, or what you think is the end of your life, you know, basically are, in my case, I just thought it was so unfair that I couldn't hold my family one more time and tell them I love them. And I just waited to be crushed. And just like that, as fast as it started, it stopped, and I was alive. And I was very happy to be alive. And I wanted to live. And so I went into kind of that fright mode where I wanted to get the heck out of there. And I went one way back toward Liberty Street, but the building was collapsed. So there really were no doors or anything. Everything was collapsed. And I came across a truck with the diesel motor running and the headlights on. And I did not recognize it as a fire truck. I don't know what it was to this day, but all I could think of in the moment was that it was a truck bomb, and that they had driven a truck bomb into the building and the bomb was going to go off. And so I went back again the other way, deeper into the Marriott, toward the lobby of the Marriott. And I came across a roll down gate that was down, metal roll down gate that was down. And I put my fingers under it to lift it up because I wanted to keep going that way, away from what I thought was this bomb. And when I lifted it up, all these fingers came from the other side. And we lifted it up, and there were like 15 firefighters and civilians who were trapped on the other side of this metal roll down gate, which I didn't know. And behind them is where the collapse went through. So they were on this ledge between the metal roll down gate and a hole that was 7 stories down. Half the firefighters and civilians that they were with were just killed in the collapse. But these about 15 folks were trapped on this ledge. And I said, I want to go that way. And they said, there is no that way. It's gone. It's 7 stories down. And so we turned around and went back the other way again. And although it was pitch black, there was a fireman coming from the outside. And one of the women up front saw his light. And she started screaming, and he started yelling, "Come to my light, come to my light." And so we all formed the chain, and we were able to get across the rubble and go that way. Anyhow, that's a long story about my survival. I was one of the few who was able to survive and get out, which I'm grateful for. I guess I'll always wonder, you know, why was I chosen to live, and Terry and Patrick and Chris and Michael and Ray and Bill and Pete, you know, all of them were taken. But if I can use my time and my voice to tell of their bravery and their courage and their heroism for future generations, then I will feel that I have lived the life they would be proud of.
My dad, when I first got promoted, he goes, the hardest tool that you're going to handle in the fire service is a flashlight and a radio. You know, because he's coming from the war where basically, you know, not everybody had a radio on the truck, you know.
Right.
So he's like, you don't understand how heavy a radio and a flashlight can be. And that's because that's the officer's tools now. And it is. I mean, as the officer, you have to solve any, you know, interpersonal conflicts, you know, just who's having a disagreement with each other. I mean, as a lieutenant in the New York City Fire Department, I found myself as both a marriage counselor, a father figure, just somebody that somebody could come to and tell you, hey, I'm having problems. I can't get this, you know, I don't understand this. Or I'm having, hey, what's going on with Joe? How come Joe's not, you know, Joe's just different, you know? He's having problems at home. Okay, let's, you know, hey, let me talk to Joe, make sure everything's okay. That's your role. Like when you become an officer, it's not to, you know, put on the collar brass and pound your chest and say, look at me, I got promoted. it's really, are you willing to take it on where it's not all about yourself anymore in your career? It's about the people that you're working with and how can you bring them up, and you have to take care of them. And it was. I thank God that I came from good places and had a good base, because I needed to tap every ounce of that when I got promoted. I'll never forget it. Tommy Galvin was the chief of training, and Tommy Galvin was my dad's probie in 123, way back in the day. And he went on to be, a big chief on the New York City Fire Department. He was the chief of training. And what a very knowledgeable and great chief and great officer. But he was my dad's probie in 123. And when I first got promoted, he grabs me grabs me on the side one day. And he's like, I went to go into a fire one day, and your dad held me back because, it was too dangerous and there was no life to save in there. And I was mad at him for a minute, but then I realized, I would have got myself all burnt up for going in there. He goes, so your dad had the ability to hold me back from that, and then he had the ability to deal with my attitude after it. And then I, went on to look at your dad and go, I want to try to be an officer like that. And of course, Tommy Galvin went up to be the chief of training, and he was a great he was a great chief of training. I mean, he brought back the mother of all drills. If you talked about that, the MOAD, because fire duty went down. It wasn't like it was in the 70s and 80s and maybe even the early 90s. So fire duty, it just went down in the volume, right? Which is good. That means something good for the city. Like, you don't city burnt down, right? Then you have Detroit, and you have us all with no money, no pensions, no any of that good stuff. So fire duty is both good and bad. When you have too much of it, you have a city that's falling apart. Just like if you have a city that's falling apart because you have too much crime, that's not good either. So you got to strike that balance. And as an officer, you have to strike the balance in your firehouse, and you have to, you have to be respectful to senior guys, and you have to let them run the firehouse when they can, and then you have to know when the officer has to jump in because now something's getting out of hand, or I need to take a different role or different look at this. So being an officer in the New York City Fire Department, in particular, nowadays is not an easy task. And the lieutenant's rank is a great rank because you're still close up to the guys that you can keep a pulse on them, and they'll listen to you. A lot of times, maybe say over the captain or the battalion chief, because you're only one rank apart, and you're more of the father figure to those guys. When the captain comes into the kitchen, he's going to put the hammer down. But before the captain comes into the kitchen of the firehouse, he's going to turn to the lieutenant and say, "Hey, see what you can do with this, or this is what I'd like to see done." And a lot of times, the captain sends the lieutenant in there, and the lieutenant, can go back and forth with the guys a little bit and the girls, and then basically kind of balance things out. And if you can't get it done as a lieutenant, well, then any firehouse in the city, the guys and girls are going to know, well, if the captain comes in here because the lieutenant asked us to do something, and now it can't get done, that hammer's going to come down.
I look at it this way. I got enough fruit salad here. On television, I had basically a show on Dateline with Brian, whatever his name is, right after 9/11. So, I've had plenty of media exposure, so I don't need any more. But at the end of the day, there's a lot of great stories, a lot of great firemen, a lot of great heroic situations that they never got a medal, they never got anything out of it. And you know what? Damn it, I'm telling their story. So why lose it to history when you could get it out there, whether it's your show or anybody's show, and tell them, hey, this is what happened. This is the beginning. Because I think you do the audience a disfavor by not showing all the warts, everything else, and the good times. If someone's going to make a valued thought on me as Mike Milner, then I got to tell them the good and the bad, the ups and the downs. Because if I don't, I'm only giving one side of the equation, and that's not how you're going to be able to judge me. You're going to judge me on the total package. What I did right, what I did wrong.
I agree completely. And that's really the vein of this show, because
especially, you know, after last year. I was kind of sitting around 2 years ago now. I keep forgetting we're in 2022 now, so I have to say 2 years ago. You know, that's really the vein of the show, because I was sitting around, I was reading these fascinating stories, and I tell this story often. When I graduated, I got many gifts when I graduated. I'm thankful for that. One of the gifts, because I've been wanting to read this book for a while, was a book on the bomb squad, where ABC News spends a year in the bomb squad. These men are very humble, much like the FDNY rescue guys. They don't make a big deal of what they do. They just prefer to do it and move on, and they treat it like another day's work. But the stories are so incredible that I said to myself, oh, no. If I can help it, we're getting this on the record.
Yes.
Because has it been told in a book? Yeah. Has it been on television? Yeah. Still riding, I watch at least once or twice a year. But long-form conversations like this, where the filters, or most of them at least, come off, that's the best way to do it.
And you know why, Mike? Because we are flesh and blood.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? I'm not Paul Newman or someone else on a television show. This is the real skinny. And, you know, I think, like I said, I just think it's important that people know the entire package of your job, because it's not always that easy. I mean, you know, yeah, did we spend a lot of time doing nothing? Yeah, that's what firemen do.
Yeah.
They train, you know, you can't.
There's quiet days. That's good. Nobody's in peril.
You can't train 6 hours. Come on. That's just,
yeah.
I mean, you'd go to the rock, there'll be probies like this, sleeping, because it's a long day. Mm-hmm. So what do you want to get? Would you rather get 2 or 3 good hours out of a rescue guy, and then take the rest of the day? All right, let's go out for dinner. Let's pick up the meal. Let's have a good time. Let's go diving as just a fun thing. Or, you know, I mean, I must have went to 20,000 bodegas and delis all over Queens to get the best sandwich, or go to the Jackson Hole Diner for a good burger.
Allegedly.
Yeah, or Starbucks. Well, see, we weren't alleged, because we were 10-8. So we had the entire city. So if we were in Rockaways, the chief wasn't going to go, why are they here? He would assume they're supposed to be there. If I had a regular company and I'm in the Rockaways, something's wrong.
Right.
So it just was great. My thought process was always, I never took it seriously. There were a lot of guys better than me. I enjoyed that kind of atmosphere in rescue, where you could do whatever you want and it was promoted. I was the funny guy at work. And I think I got pictures of me dressed up as a leprechaun or something. I don't know. And I have a bra on in one of the shots. But, you know, I like to have fun. You know, there's a lot. Listen, I had a lot of bad times. So that was one of my therapies to keep, you know, my ticker going properly.
Yeah.
So I like to have fun. And I even made fun of myself. So that was never an issue. But I liked having fun. So, you know, that's
the roof rope rescue you were involved in Brooklyn. Now, when you think of roof rope rescues in FDNY history, the one that everybody thinks of, you probably know what I'm going to mention, is the one with Patty Brown and Kevin Shea in Manhattan, which was a great rescue that they did. But this one's pretty interesting. It's kind of almost a last resort for the FDNY. It's a very, very technical aspect of rescue. And you, I believe, were on the rope to rescue a 15-year-old boy from a fire?
It was a 15-year-old, yes.
Take me through that.
Yeah, so as anybody would tell you that's been involved in a rope rescue, I would say most of them don't go 100% according to plan. You know, we drill a lot, we train a lot for it. You have to know it. You got to know it cold when you have to do it. And that particular night, you know, we were coming back from another job, and we were pretty close to this when this box came in. I guess it was like, I remember it was like 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, something like that. And if I remember correctly, and we were coming back from a job. Ray Downey was working. He was the officer. And we got in pretty quickly. We got in before the second ladder company. And it was a fire in a 3-story brownstone type building. You know, it has a high stoop and pretty good amount of fire on the second floor, which we call the parlor floor. And I had the roof. So I went up the area ladder to the roof and got up to the roof, you know, heavy smoke condition. The first due truck company roof firefighter was up there doing his job. And I heard some screaming going on towards the back of the building. And I look over and, you know, sure enough, there's a woman hanging out the window on the top floor, the 3rd floor. Bob Gallione was working in ladder 176. He was in the backyard. He was the outside vent firefighter. And he was, you know, talking to the people, you know, telling them not to jump. And so I'm like, oh my God, I guess I got to do this, you know? So I went through the motions, setting it up, and the firefighter that was on the roof from the first two truck, we went through the motions to get it all set up. And when I say things don't go 100% according to plan, this one didn't go according to plan. I was very lucky that I didn't get hurt or even killed, to be honest with you. So when I went over the edge of the roof, I could hardly see the guy that was lowering me. And, we were communicating verbally. And at one point, I was saying, are we good to go? We're good to go. And, this woman's like screaming, Galleon screaming to the woman in the back. And so I heard him say, go. So I went. So when I go off the edge of the roof, I dropped like about 2 feet. I'm like, that wasn't good. Like, right. So now I'm calling them on the radio, and they're lowering me down, and they lower me too far. So now my head is at the windowsill, and this woman is screaming. And somehow, some way, they pulled me up a little bit, and she's screaming about a baby. So I said, give me the baby. Give me the baby. And who comes out the window is this 15-year-old kid. That was her baby. He was like 6'2". He was a big boy. And he came climbing out, they lowered me down to the ground, and he was in pretty decent shape. He was a little, he took a little smoke. But then Ray Downey and the guys on the inside, they wound up getting 2 other people out, the woman, and there was another gentleman in the apartment that had been burned pretty badly. They got him out from the inside. But after the fire was all over, you go out to the front of the building, and Ray Downey taps me on the shoulder. He says, "Did you do a rope rescue?" I says, "Yeah." He says, I couldn't get through on the radio to tell the chief because it was total chaos, a lot going on. And he says, "Holy geez, well." So he tells the chief, and then another guy comes tapping me on the shoulder. This guy, Tony Asaro, he was the chauffeur in 176, senior firefighter, good guy. And he says, "Hey, did you know when you went over the roof," he says, "that so-and-so didn't take the turns in the hook on the rope? They lowered me hand over hand. Like 2 guys, which was crazy." So I was embarrassed because we kind of screwed it up. Everything worked out. I didn't get hurt. We got the kid down, and everything worked out. But it was a little bit embarrassing because if you're the firefighter going over, you got to make sure that it's done right. And I guess in the excitement of it all, whatever, I heard the words go. I went, and as it turned out, this young man who was the firefighter on the roof, his name was Don Schneider. Don went on to become a captain, but Don went on to become one of my firefighters in Squad 270 when I became the captain. And we talked about that fire all the time. And I said, the only reason why I took you to the squad is I had to keep an eye on you. So you get. But he was great. He was a great firefighter. He turned out to be an excellent officer, and he retired as the captain of Squad 252. So that was a lesson learned for me, and I took that lesson throughout the rest of my career when I got promoted, and I would tell people that story all the time. And I told it because you have to be sure that we've done our best to set this rope rescue operation up the way it's supposed to be. And again, none of them go 100% according to plan. The ones that have been done, that I've talked to people, almost none of them. So it is a last resort, but when you do it, you got to get it right. And that night I was very lucky. So, I made a mistake, and I got away with it, like we do a lot in this job. You talk to people, I'm sure you talk to firefighters,
Yep.
And sometimes we get very lucky, a lot of close calls.
Right there, okay? Just stay up against the window. Sleep. I never sleep. Let's go.
You never can tell. That's what makes it so exciting. It could be a quiet day, quiet night, or all hell can break loose, and you could be running around, you know, for the rest of the day or the rest of the night.
The job pretty much stays the same because the breed of men are the same, and they're a good breed of men, and they're good men.
My father was a fireman and a fire lieutenant in this company, so I grew up, me and my brothers used to ride along as kids, so we grew up kind of wanting to be firemen.
Yeah, that was excellent information, you know? Very warm. Time to go back.
We got a second shaft in there.
It's a smoke in a high-rise building down Lower Manhattan, down the Wall Street area. Been trying to locate the fire, and they haven't found it yet. So we'll come in and help them with the thermal imaging cameras. It's a great tool for locating the fire. It sees heat through the smoke.
I don't care if the fire is in the basement. I'm cutting the roof.
The job will be fun again, but it'll never be as much.
A lot of respect because they always see us running into the burning buildings as everyone else is leaving.
Slow, Jerry. She's to the roof.
A word of praise from our brothers is worth $1 million for a job well done.